salutations, creature lovers. This is Mr. Venom welcoming you to episode 51 of No More Room in Hell presents Creature Comforts. Before we introduce this month's movie, let me go ahead and bring in my cohorts. Coming to us from the main show, No More Room in Hell, it is Mr. Derek B. How you doing, Derek?
Hey, yo, that egg is about to hatch.
And coming to us from Fresh Cuts, it is Mr. Don Anelli. How you doing, Don?
What's going on? Always happy to be here.
All right, folks. Well, I hope you enjoyed our top 5 list on the last episode, episode 50, of course. But with this episode, we are back to our normal rotation of feature reviews, and this month's pick belongs to Mr. Don Anelli. So I'm going to go ahead and turn the mic over to Don for his introduction of this month's movie. Go ahead, Don.
All right. Well, since this is Kaijun, and I figure what better way to celebrate that than by celebrating one of the all-time best and one of my personal favorites, 1956's Rodan.
Monster is a skyscraper. When he moves, the whole earth quivers and quakes, and an abyss of horror opens up. See these prehistoric beasts emerge from the bowels of the earth after 200 million years to devastate mankind. Supersonic jets cannot catch him. Rockets cannot stop him. Armored tanks are helpless before him. Even guided missiles are powerless. See Rodan destroy a modern city, leveling it to the earth with a killing airstream of his mighty wings. Nothing can stop him. Nothing escapes this monstrous beast of evil.
So much fun. All right, folks. So, as Don mentioned, our movie this month is Rodan. I'm not even going to attempt to pronounce the Japanese title, even though I'm usually
Sara
pretty
no
good at that.
Daikaiju Reidon.
Thank you, Don. Very nice. All right, Rodan is coming to us from 1956. This was before movies were rated, so it does not have a specific rating. I'm finding multiple durations, like IMDb says
I
1
can
hour.
explain that, yeah.
Oh, good. Okay.
I can explain that.
I'll turn the mic over to Don here in a little bit, and he can explain the discrepancy in durations from what I watched and what IMDb is saying. But of course, this movie comes to us from Japan, and our synopsis is as follows. A mining engineer investigates the deaths of his colleagues, discovering prehistoric nymphs and a creature capable of flying and wreaking havoc at supersonic speeds. Wow. Diagram that sentence. That was a long one. Anyway, of course, our movie is directed by Ishiro Honda and with a lot of familiar names for those of us who have been in the kaiju game for a while. Like I said, IMDb is claiming this movie is 1 hour and 14 minutes, though the version that I watched today was 1 hour and 23 minutes. But let's go ahead and turn the mic over to Don, and he'll give us a little explanation as to why.
Yeah, so the majority of that is more than likely just due to, screw-ups because of, just not knowing how to properly input matters. The fact that it's mostly 10 minutes off just means that a lot of it is probably just due to a person inadvertently hitting the wrong key, not realizing it, and then just going from there. That's usually been the case, but there are a few alterations, and some of that is due to the differences in Americanization versus the Japanese version. So the American version tacks on the prologue with all of these American nuclear tests and various explosions. I'm pretty sure Castle Bravo is one of them. Although most people will be intimately familiar with at least one of the explosions, which is the one in the Pacific, which is where they destroy that whole fleet of battleships. I think that's the first hydrogen bomb, although I tend to get a lot of that stuff mixed up.
I
But
think, sorry to cut you off, the test that we see is actually Operation Crossroads.
yeah, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So like I said, I know I get the names of some of those mixed up. Like I know Castle Bravo's one.
Mm-hmm.
Operation Crossroads is definitely one of them. A lot of that was tacked on for the American version. If you watch the Japanese version, it opens up immediately on the village where everything is set. That's the genuine opening. All of the American military tests, the fact that they say that there's two of them, the one on the land and then the one at sea where they blow up the battleships, that's all tacked on for the American version. The American version also tends to add narration the main character provides. There's none of that in the Japanese version. Although the main thing that I want to mention between the American and Japanese versions, I mean, there's incidental stuff here and there. The honeymooners and the volcano, they have no dialogue whatsoever in the Japanese version. The American version makes it seem like the husband's henpecking her to try to get her to pose right. In the Japanese version, there's none of that. They're photographing. She notices something and screams. They take off. Rodan captures them, so on. The main difference between the two versions is the American version switches up when we find the second Rodan. So I do want to give a little bit of spoilers here, just because I do have to explain this, but the American version switches it up to where we meet Rodan 2, and I'll explain everything if you'll just bear with me here. We introduce Rodan 2 early in the movie. In the Japanese version, Rodan 2 is treated as just sort of like the punishing blow to the city attack, where the military's ineffective, Rodan's rampaging, and then oh crap, there's a second one. So it's kind of like the defeating death blow to the city destruction sequence. In the American version, it's when Rodan is first introduced, and well, if I can explain it, and for those that have seen it, you'll know. In the American version, they arrive at the site, they go to investigate, and then Rodan pops up. He gets recognized by Shigeru. He says, yes, that's the one that hatched. And as he leaves, he gets up and flies away. And then they get up and go to check, and then, oh crap, the second one shows up. So in the American version, Rodan 1 appears, flies off. Rodan 2 appears, attacks the Jeep, flies off, gets attacked by the jets, falls into the stream, wreaks havoc in the city. Rodan 1 returns, and the two fly off together and destroy the city.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the Japanese version, it's Rodan 1 shows up, attacks the jet, flies over the city, destroys everything. And then when in the middle of the city rampage, when they announce that Rodan has arrived, in the American version, when they say that the second Rodan has appeared to join its mate, that's actually the fighter pilots saying we're tracking the second Rodan that's approaching the city. And then that's when everybody goes to the window to confirm, oh crap, there is the second one. So that's kind of like the major differences between the two, is that it switches up when we learn that there's the second Rodan.
Nice.
Yeah,
Right.
from what I remember from watching, I actually rewatched the scene where in the American version, they actually just swapped the film from when Rodan's flying in the air and then you can see it's like a reverse. All the characters are in a separate, like backwards from the scene that they're in before. Look, there's another mate.
Interesting. Yeah. Well, it's good to know that I watched the Japanese version, which, for those that are interested, it is currently available on HBO Max if you have a subscription to HBO Max. In fact, HBO Max has a partnership with Toho because they have a lot of kaiju on HBO Max. So
Yeah,
the app to have for kaiju fans is going to be HBO
yeah.
Max. Oh,
Plus, the Japanese version also has a little bit more of the Mega Nulon attack in the city, which I
yeah.
actually appreciated the first time I watched the Japanese version.
I don't honestly. I don't think I've ever seen the American version. I mean, maybe when I watched it as a kid on television, maybe that was the American version. But it's been so long, I wouldn't have remembered. The last few times I've watched it on HBO Max, and it's always that Japanese version, which I do appreciate. Like Derek says, I like the fact that we get a little bit more time with the larva at the beginning. Kind of, it's almost like it makes you think that that's Rodan. Like if you know nothing, if you go into this movie completely blind, it's almost like they're setting up these grubs to be the Rodan when ultimately it's baby Rodan's food more than anything. So
Yeah,
I
that's
do
the
kind of like
greatest
that.
reveal ever. It was fucking,
Yeah.
like I said during the last show.
Yes, exactly. All right, folks. Well, now that we got that explanation out of the way, let's go ahead and talk general thoughts about Rodan. So, hell, while Don is all warmed up, let's go ahead and bring him in since he selected our movie this episode. So, Don, why don't you go ahead and give us a little bit about your history with Rodan and some general thoughts?
Okay, well, if you want my history, this is movie number one. This was basically my introduction to movies. I first saw this in 1993. I wish I still remember the date off the top of my head, but I know this for a fact because my grandmother taped it off of cable for me when I asked her to do it. And this was my introduction to movies. I can share that story if you wish, but we'll deal with that at a later time. I remember, the day that I got this, I remember sneaking into the living room at 1 a.m. because everybody else was asleep, watching this, and the fact that just seeing all these things, even though I couldn't hear anything because I had the thing on mute so nobody would hear, just seeing the visuals and seeing what was going on, I remember vividly the way my face hurt from smiling watching everything. Seeing these giant insects and not knowing what the hell they were, and this lavish little town, and they're trying to deal with everything, and then holy crap, there's this gigantic, and I mean, for a person that knows nothing about it, this gigantic bird just flying around, throwing buses all over the place, and ripping cars off, standing up to a tank, and just seeing this havoc that it caused. It just made my face hurt. And it's only happened like that one other time, and that was the day I lost my virginity. So that tells you exactly how much of an impression this made on me. To me, I think this is one of the few perfect movies out there. And I say this knowing full well the kind of chaos it's going to cause. I think this is a better horror monster movie than the original Godzilla. I consider this a better horror movie than the original Godzilla simply because the mega neurons in the first half are genuine horror villains. And as much as I think the events of the original Godzilla are more horrific to go through, this is more of a horror film. And the first half of this is just this fantastic little battle between this community and these giant insects that are just killing everything in sight. The atmosphere of the mine, I remember genuinely feeling terrified, like that first scene where the guy just falls underwater because he doesn't want to face the creatures, and just being like, wait, what's going on? Why is he just falling under the water? And you see the second guy, he fires off a few shots, and just he decides to follow underwater. And then like the third guy just frantically getting away, and it's like like what the hell's going on? You see the giant egg later on when Shigeru has his flashback. You fall in love with it, and it's fun. It's fast paced. There's just no downtime at all. The characters are great. I love this little community where everybody's dealing with it. These just tragic incidents, and then they have to deal with Rodan, and then it turns into this military action movie, and the rampage in the city is great. I love the models. The tanks are firing just crazy, and you see these rocket bursts just exploding all over the place. And then to me, I think this is the greatest finale to a monster movie I've ever seen. This is still my favorite. I love the plan. I love the way it comes together. It's simple in concept, but it just looks so great on screen. You feel for him. The spectacle is amazing. To me, I still call this one of the perfect films ever made. And yeah, I've talked about this before. It's one of my favorite non-horror films of all time, and I think it has good reason to be. So yeah, I guess I'll leave it at that and just say I picked this for a reason, and it still holds up to this day.
Excellent. All right, Derek, why don't you come on in here? Give me your general thoughts on Rodan.
Oh, it's like one of my favorite movies of all time, man. The first time I ever seen this movie, like when I was a kid, I'm like, oh, cool. It's set in the mine. I like movies set in mines. They don't make really much of them, but I really love that setting of like this village that runs on a mine. Like it kind of reminds me of like My Bloody Valentine in a way. In that sense, imagine Harry Warden versus Rodan. That'd be amazing. But anyways, yeah, I love that. Like it starts out like this the found a body. It starts out like a who done it. Like they're trying to figure out like what caused his death. And there's some like red herrings, like there's a guy Guro that's missing as well. I kind of dig that about the movie. Then it turns into a killer bug movie, which is pretty fucking awesome. Like it keeps spiraling out of control as the movie continues. And then it turns into a giant flying kaiju movie, which that way the movie progresses, I kind of do agree. I do kind of like the progression of this more than like say like a Godzilla, which nothing against Godzilla. Godzilla is a classic in its own right, but like from point A to point B to point C, like this movie like just progressively gets like better as it goes along, and in that sense where and I love the characters. Like I love like this little mining community. I said in the last show, like one of the scenes that I remember vividly is Shigeru's memory be coming back, where he's holding like this little egg in his hand, and and he probably killed that fucking baby egg. He probably threw that across the wall when he got his memory back. From when after the flashback's over, you see that baby egg anymore. You know what I mean? That scene where he finds that egg, and you see the Mega Nulon in the cave with him, and then the egg starts to hatch, and you hear like this great, like horrific music by Akira Fukube. This is one of his best scores, too. Like even like a lot of like the later like Toho movies that he composed, you reuse a lot of the flying Air Force music that's in this movie, which especially Godzilla versus King Ghidorah, that like that whole like Air Force scene where they're fighting King Ghidorah, it's the music from this movie. But yeah, when Baby Rodan just kills those Mega Nulon, the horror on his face where these things that were killing all his friends were just food for these creatures is the most horrific thing that you could just realize. Like this is even worse than before. Like the shed of fear on his face, like no one this is worse than the fucking baby dragonfly eggs. You know what I mean? Yeah, I love this movie with a passion. Rodan. Plus, this is the best Rodan's ever looked in the Showa era. Still, to this day, they look because they kind of like goofed him up a little bit in like later movies, which is a shame because the design in this movie is impeccable, and it's kind of sad that he gets kind of a goofy face in later movies. Looking at you, Monster Zero. But Rodan, it's a classic for a reason, and it's soon to be its birthday this year. 70 years. That's fucking crazy.
Yeah, that's insane. I mean, we just celebrated, Big G's 70th a couple of years ago. So yeah, 70 is such a huge number when it comes to cinema. It's for a creature or for a character of any kind, human or creature.
Plus, did I mention like this is
Mhm.
like one of the first color kaiju movies?
Right?
Like that's a big thing.
Because this was the same year as Raids Again, right?
Yeah.
No, Raids
Yeah.
Against the year before. They did everything was the year. They never doubled up until
Oh, okay.
64.
Gotcha.
64 is the first time that they doubled up, and that was the year that they did three.
Mhm.
Only because they skipped 63. Well, I mean, you can count Actragon, but 63 was like the first time that there was no like showcase monster movie. And then they ended up bumping Mothra versus Godzilla back to January. And then they did Frankenstein and Ghidra. And then they ended up tripling up in 64. And then I think
Ah,
they doubled up until I think they doubled up until Destroy All Monsters, and then they did one after that every year.
Yeah.
gotcha. All right. So yeah, I mean, and I honestly I was pretty impressed with the transfer of this one. This one looked really nice. Like for a movie that literally is just a year after Raids Again, it looks hand
Ten
over
times
fist
better.
better. Yeah, it really does. I mean, I don't know if it was just the color or if they were just able to restore the original prints easier with Rodan than the first two Godzilla movies, but I mean, I was definitely kind of thrown back by how nice this looks. So, my general thoughts are I'm going to come in, and I love the enthusiasm that Don and Derek both have for this one, but I'm going to come in about a half a step behind them. I do love this movie. I genuinely do. Once again, it is a first movie that introduces a creature that's going to spend, the next 70 years plus with us. Another thing that really threw me about this one the first couple of times I watched it is how much of a story driven kaiju movie this is. Up until now, maybe not by date, but by as far as the kaiju movies that I had seen up until the first time I saw Rodan, they were all fairly, other than the original Godzilla, they were all fairly action driven. It was all about the action, the destruction, the fights, everything else. This one, I was pretty surprised at how story driven it was for, at least, like I said, I hadn't seen this in probably 20 to 25 years since the last time I watched this one. But yeah, just a great little story. Just like Derek said, some really likable characters throughout. I do question why we even bothered having the fight between Goro and Yoshihiro early in the movie. It seemed like it. I understand that it kind of added a mystery to it because people were thinking that Goro was the one who killed the other character.
Yeah.
So there is a mystery, but it's like once they get the reveal that it's not Goro, that he also is a victim along with the original victim, it's almost like it's just forgotten. And that kind of rubs me weird at times, especially because, Kyo is, and Shigeru are such big characters in this movie. Like Goro's name, once they find Goro's body, I don't think they even mention his name again the rest of the movie. So I'm sitting there like, did we really set up this fight with these two just so that we could have the misunderstanding of who the killer was? And I guess like that might have worked better a little bit like in a giallo type situation, but in a kaiju movie, it felt odd. Not bad, mind you. I'm not downplaying it or saying that it should have been taken out. I'm just saying it felt odd to me. That's all. But once we get past all that, yeah, the Megalunans are pretty damn cool looking. I would have been thoroughly satisfied had they been the only kind. Like if that was what Rodan was with one of them, I probably would have been very satisfied with the movie. But the fact that you introduced them, and like Derek said, the first time that you watch this and you watch the scene with baby Rodan hatching and realize that these giant creatures that are like the size of a car are dwarfed by this baby Rodan. They literally look like just regular sized caterpillars next to baby Rodan, and he's scooping them up like, a couple at a time. It's pretty intense. And definitely it is a major oh shit moment. I will absolutely admit that. I also kind of expected the Megalunan to be a little bit more part of the story moving forward, like afterwards, kind of like, and I can't believe I'm referencing this, but that the shitty American Godzilla, how they had the ticks that were kind of falling off of Godzilla.
Oh, the sea leeches, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. Like it kind of reminded me of that, which obviously I don't really want to be reminded of Godzilla 99 by any stretch, but whatever. I understand. Now I understand maybe where that movie got that idea from, but I would have liked to have seen a little bit more with them after the introduction of Rodan, but at the same time, Rodan and Rodan 2 is definitely enough. Once you get the reveal that there's a second one, it adds that extra sense of just chaos and doom, really. Like if you guys can't deal with one of these guys, how the hell are you going to deal with two giant flying pterodons that have sonic boom capabilities as they fly by? It just seems like humanity is doomed,
Hey, Venom. That's one of the reasons why Godzilla versus Megaguirus is one of my favorite Godzilla movies, is because they bring them back.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, it just, like I said, whenever a plot point, especially when something is a major plot point for the first half of a movie, and actually in this movie, it's technically more than half, because in the Japanese version, we don't see Rodan until 55 minutes into the movie. It's an hour and 25-minute movie if you're watching the Japanese version, and 55 minutes in. So we really only get a half hour of Rodan or, either of the Rodans in the Rodan movie, which is fine because that's kind of the early formula for kaiju movies, set up the mystique of the creature, set up the lore, and then boom, have them show up like in the second or third act, whatever the case may be. I'm fine with that. That's what I was talking about earlier, that this movie comes off more like a story-driven kaiju movie. And again, not a bad thing by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, it's always good to do your history. It's always good to go back and see where things like the legendary MonsterVerse got its start and the roots of what we're now doing in American cinema. And Japan is still doing it, obviously. We just got the Godzilla Minus Zero trailer last month, which I'm sure we're all very excited about. Going back, watching the original films in the franchise, getting that little bit of lore, that little bit of history, always worth it, even if it's not as action driven as you would like. And I'll be the first one to admit, I like my action driven kaiju movies. Absolutely. Not to say that I'm against a story driven one by any stretch, but just the first time that I watch a kaiju movie and I'm expecting kaiju action, but then I get this deep story with, these miners and, the people in this village and, the accusations of Goro, and even the fact that the victim's wife came after Goro's sister at one point and she had to be stopped. She had to be stopped by like 4 villagers from, I'm assuming she was just going to go and try to kick her ass or whatever. But again,
that's like another day in Charlestown here, man.
But yeah, like I said, that misunderstanding, it adds to the mystery. It kind of adds to the story, which, like I said, this is a stellar story. I will absolutely agree with Don and Derek on that one. I do love the story here. I love the characters. The professor is great. Shigeru is great. Honestly, I have no major issues. There's not really a lot of comic relief. Like I've said it before, how some of the 60s Godzilla movies started to turn kind of more towards comedy and kind of entertaining the younger audience. And it's nice to see early kaiju movies when they're still taking themselves seriously. And yeah, this one, to mind, I barely remember chuckling on any time I've watched this movie. It's taken very seriously. There's no goofy characters, like the idiot in what was it? The guy in King Kong versus Godzilla who kept eating boiled eggs, like that guy.
Oh,
I
Mr.
didn't know whether
Peanut, or
to,
whatever the fuck his name was.
yeah, I mean, I didn't know whether to laugh at him or be pissed off at him because it was one of the first times that the Godzilla franchise tried to be comedic. And I just remember thinking, well, this is odd. After the first two movies taking themselves very seriously and having almost nothing laughable, then to introduce this character who's very obviously the comic relief in the third Godzilla movie. So it's like, okay, I guess the
I
franchise is taking a turn.
I rewatched that recently, and I'm like, why is a cigarette company after King Kong?
Oh, yeah, that's right. I watched every Godzilla movie no during the his 70th anniversary month back in November 2024. I actually watched every Godzilla movie in order just to kind of refresh, and it really opened my eyes, watching it with older eyes, more seasoned cinematic eyes, and really seeing a lot of the layers underneath that you don't really think about when you're a kid watching a kaiju movie. You don't think about the subtext in a lot of these movies. You're just like, you just want to see monsters fight, and there's nothing wrong with that necessarily. But then as an adult, if you still enjoy these movies and you watch them more and more, you start to get the subtext, the metaphors, and this one definitely, obviously every kaiju movie has kind of a very similar subtext, with, nuclear testing, in this case, hydrogen bomb testing, blah, blah, blah. So the thematics are still there. But yeah, I mean, I can't really disagree with Derek and Don on too much. I mean, the movie is an absolute classic. It's thoroughly enjoyable from beginning to end. There's not, in my opinion, there's not really too many wasted scenes. Like I said, I question the fight between Goro and the other guy at the beginning, but at the same time, I'm not going to argue about it. Ultimately, it's not like it took me out of the movie at all. It's just that once that plot point was over, I started to think, well, why? Like, why are we not even bringing up Goro again? Like, this is Goro's sister throughout the rest of the movie, and she never mentions her brother again. So, kind of interesting, but at the same time, hour and 25-minute runtime, so you kind of gotta, pick it up. And that was something that I wanted to say about this movie. The pacing is breakneck in this movie. Like literally, it's not like it's a roller coaster ride necessarily, but literally, like with the scene with the honeymooners, it's like they're at the volcano, they're taking pictures, Rodan flies by, and then instantly we're back at the military headquarters with their camera talking about how, oh, this couple died, but we got their camera and there may be pictures on here that might be interesting. Like it's a snappy pace. Like there is no bullshit here. It's just boom, 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 plot point, plot point, plot point. And honestly, I'm okay with that. Like I said, because you don't want to get bored when you're watching a kaiju movie. And that's always the concern when you're watching, a 70-year-old kaiju movie. If you're used to stuff like Godzilla minus one and King of the Monsters, wall to wall action, then yeah, going back to these might be, might rub you the wrong way sometimes. But for whatever it's worth, I think Rodan really is a stellar example. I mean, I'm right there with Don and Derek. I've got this up there with the original Godzilla and Mothra, just some of my favorite classic kaiju movies, because obviously
Those three are the original Avengers.
Exactly. I love it. Oh man. But yeah, just like I said, it's always good to go back and do your homework, and it's always good to watch these classics. Would I rather watch Rodan or Godzilla? I think I'd rather watch Godzilla 9 times out of 10. But the mere fact that I had gone so long without watching this, I was very happy when Don announced it last month that we were doing it, especially with Derek talking about Baby Godzilla, Baby Rodan, and me completely forgetting what Baby Rodan even looked like. I mean, I literally had
terrifying.
Yeah, no, I gotta say, I totally agree. For a baby creature, he doesn't have that overly adorable nature that a lot of baby creatures have. Because even baby Godzilla is fucking adorable. Manili, or whatever name he.
Oh, even that one in Space Godzilla.
All right. So, I mean, I guess at this point we can kind of talk about the story a little bit, but I think we've all kind of brought it up. brought up the different elements of the story. So I think if you're listening to us and you've never seen Rodan, you probably already know what's going on at this point. Our movie opens up with a fight between two miners. Later on that same day, one of them is found dead. He's been stabbed in the head or slashed in the head by something very sharp. They think it's Goro because they got into a fight earlier in the day, but then later on in the film, we see our first creature, and it's one of those little larvae, the Megalunan, and they kind of look like if the caterpillar Mothra and Ebra had a baby, because it kind of looks like the caterpillar Mothra but with claws. So yeah, Ebra and Mothra got together and got busy. So there you go.
Yeah.
Once the discovery of the Megalunans is found, obviously they now know why all these people are either dying or disappearing. They try to do some investigation, and then they discover the egg, or should I say, was it Shigeru?
Shigeru, yeah.
Shigeru, yeah.
Yeah, it was Shigeru who actually saw the egg hatch, which left him comatose. It actually left him with amnesia, which is kind of odd. At the same time, though, there was a cave-in, so maybe he was hit in the head right after seeing baby Rodan hatch. But yeah, he sees baby Rodan hatch. That's where we see that first image of baby Rodan eating the Megalunan, which, like I said, it's definitely, you're definitely not prepared for it the first time. It's like, whoa, those giant ass creatures look like tiny little caterpillars now. Go figure. So, and then from there, it's just classifying Rodan. They figure out that he is an ancient pterodon, but they realize that due to tectonic shifts and eruptions from what is it, Mount Aso, there are
Toya. I did forget to mention, switch that up. There's two other things to mention now that you bring that up. Mm-hmm. The Japanese version calls it Mount Aso. The American version says it's Mount Toya.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know why. And then the other one is something that I'll mention in just a few minutes. But since you brought it up, I also want to mention that those are two other little changes that the American version makes against the Japanese.
Nice, very nice. So eventually, the humans discover that there is a second Rodan after a great set piece where Rodan is flying around destroying this city. What he did to that Jeep, I thought was amazing. When that Jeep,
you see the little body.
Yes, oh, that was awesome to have that little body flying out of the Jeep. That was great. That's definitely something I'm surprised they did, because they could have not had the body in there and maybe the scene wouldn't have been as intense. But to have that, dummy kind of flying out of the Jeep, I thought that was great. That was cool. A great addition. But like I said, after the first rampage from Rodan, we find out that there is another Rodan. And then, of course, as Derek mentioned, Shigeru gets his memory back after he witnesses like a small bird, like a sparrow egg. I mean, I don't think they have sparrows in Japan, but a small songbird egg. He notices it hatch and it jars something in his memory. And then suddenly, instantly, all his memories come back. He remembers his girlfriend's name. It's funny. They call Kyo Shigeru's lover in this one in IMDb, which almost feels disrespectful. I don't know. I know lover is kind of an antiquated term. People don't really use that anymore, but I don't know. I always thought like girlfriend, spouse, partner is a little bit more, dignified, especially.
It's even funnier on Wikipedia because I'm reading that now. Kyo, Goro's sister.
She can't just be Kyo. She's got to be somebody else's something. That's misogyny. That's 1950s misogyny at its best. But anyway, so like I said, once they discover that there is a second Rodan, of course, they have their little plan. I think they figure out that they're actually hiding inside of this volcano, this basically inactive volcano.
It's the same one. It's Mount Aso or Toya. Yeah, it's the same one.
And then they shoot, basically, they bombard it with missiles, with like long range missiles, while the Rodan creatures are hiding, basically underneath the surface. we see that the volcano starts to erupt to the point where the military has to like move their home operations because of the concern that the volcano is going to erupt. Eventually, yes, the volcano does erupt, and I'm obviously glossing over this. I am not doing it justice because, like Don said, this is an absolute great scene and somewhat emotional too. I mean, even though Rodan is definitely more of a villainous character in this movie, to watch that one try to fly away while on fire, just it's a little sad. And then he gives that one last effort and he can't do it and he just falls back into the lava. Yeah, that's kind of how our movie ends. I did have a question for my co-host because I literally just watched this, like I said, for the first time in many years, literally right before we got on the program here. Did they get Rodan too, or did he survive?
They kind of. Oh, go ahead.
Supposedly, the idea is that they both perish.
Oh,
But if you watch Ghidra, the three-headed monster, it says that it survived.
Yeah,
okay.
that's
So
the Rodan from that movie that he survived the volcano and he was
Yeah,
buried.
I think it's been a while since I've seen it, but I believe in the Japanese version they mentioned that it used its body as a shield. The first one that fell, that one's definitively dead. That one's burnt to a crisp.
Mhm.
But I believe that there was mention in the Japanese version of Ghidra that the second one used the body of the first as a shield.
Uh,
Okay.
I don't
Cool.
know if that's true or not. It's been years since I've seen it.
Mhm.
So, like I said, I don't know if that's actually in the Japanese version or if that's just a fan theory that they say is in the Japanese version.
Mhm.
But I believe that somewhere in that version they say that this it used the body of the second one as a shield, and that's why it took so long for them to dig it out because they were digging through the body of the first one and they couldn't get to the second one.
I do love the reveal in Ghidra though, because it actually does pick up where they go to like Mount Aso and then it comes out of the fucking rocks and it's pretty gnarly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I'll have to check that out. I haven't watched that one in a long time too, but yeah. Okay, so that answers my question though. As far as the context of this film alone, both of them are considered dead. Okay, that's what I was confused about a little bit after watching this one today. Admittedly, I was taking notes and looking down at my notebook periodically, and I thought I might have missed something, and maybe I did. But yeah, so yeah, that's pretty much our story. I definitely didn't do it any justice. I mean, that was not any kind of walkthrough so much as just a quick synopsis of the story. They pack a lot of story into an hour and 25 minutes for this movie. Like I said, we got a breakneck pace. We got plot point after plot point after plot point, which I'm on board for. It definitely helps you pay attention. That you're definitely not looking at your phone when you're worried about missing a plot point every 4 minutes. So yeah, definitely an absolute classic. Not necessarily the greatest of the three OGs, in my opinion, but that's why opinions are great because we all have different ones. Still, an incredibly fun movie, almost sad at the end, especially if you are a fan of Rodan. And let's talk about the design a little bit. I mean, ultimately Rodan is one of the simpler creatures. I mean, he's very basically just a pterodon, obviously a gigantic fucking pterodon. Like I don't think the actual pterodons that existed on Earth got as big as Rodan, but just to see
No,
that.
the biggest one that's ever been found so far is Quetzalcoatlus. And if I remember second grade Earth history right, I think they said that the biggest one that they found with that guy is a 40-foot wingspan.
Jeez.
Nice.
Yeah, I if I'm remembering Earth history right, I think they said 40 feet is the biggest one, and that's the largest prehistoric one
Right.
that they found. In terms of pteranodons, I think those guys are probably somewhere in the 15 to 20-foot range.
Yeah, I think in the movie they mentioned like the biggest ones, at least up to 1956, that they had discovered it was like 28 feet. And that's when they got into the conversation about, how can a bird with a 28-foot wingspan take down a jet? And he didn't just take down that jet, he cut it in half. Like, that was a great scene. I mean, we don't see that it's Rodan. We just see the jet kind of fall into two pieces to the ground. I thought that was
Yeah,
great.
yeah, and you kind of get like little hints that there may be two of them early in the movie too, with the news reports, because one's in
Mhm.
Beijing, but the other one's in a different part of the around the same time. So that's kind of a cool little Easter egg when you rewatch the movie.
Yeah, I'm actually kind of surprised that Beijing had such a large. I mean, it's not like it's a gigantic part of the movie took place in Beijing, but the fact that any part of the movie took place in it in 1950s Japan, I didn't think they got along with China that much. But then again, my history might be a little skewed. So,
Yeah, but
uh,
like I said,
mhm,
like this is probably the best Rodan's looked in the show era is this
mhm.
movie. Because like I said, like
I'm going to
even
throw down and say this is his best design period. I don't even like the MonsterVerse version. This is, to me, still the best.
Wow.
it, hmm, I do like the Heisei version because it is a little different, but it's not goofy like the later
Yeah.
Mhm.
Showa era.
No, I'm going to say the '60s Showa one looks too derpy.
Yeah,
Like they attached the nose weird, and his eyes droop, and it just looks off. He doesn't look like a. He almost looks too much like the beast from the Giant Claw or something. But
yeah. Like they super glue the vulture from Godzilla versus the Sea Monsters beak onto him.
yeah,
All
I was
right.
gonna say I think if I was to rank them, I'd say this one is number one. Probably the Heisei one from '93. Then maybe the MonsterVerse version, and then probably like the Showa '60s.
Yeah, those are my top three too. Like because I like those three just because the differences, but it looks like
Mhm.
it's Rodan. you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then I think all of
I
them are
mean,
just better than the Final Wars version because that guy just looks
oh yeah.
fucking awful.
Oh God, yes, yes.
That's
Yeah,
why I
We
didn't
yeah.
can all
mention him.
agree on
Yeah.
that one.
Yeah.
I would probably flip flop you guys is number 2 and 3. I love the Monsterverse Rodan. I just something about that introduction scene in King of the Monsters, just
Yo,
watching
that
him
that me that
basically lay Mexico City to waste was fucking great.
yo, and I love the music too, where the Japanese guys in the background are like Rodan, like the hype man.
Yeah. Oh man, so good. But yeah, I'll have to get myself a little bit more familiar with the Heisei Rodan. It's been a little while. But yeah, I mean, what else can we say? I guess I will let my co-host give their closing thoughts before we get out of here. So let's go ahead and start with the man who picked the movie, Mr. Don Anelli. Don, any closing thoughts on Rodan before we get out of here?
Yeah. One last thing. The Americanization differences. In the Japanese version, the city was Fukuoka. In the American version, they changed it to Sasebo simply because American audiences would have been more familiar with the city. Sasebo was the home of the American Naval
Ah.
Forces in Japan.
Mhm.
So after the war, that was where the naval bases were. So they figured
Gotcha.
American audiences would have been more familiar with the city. So they switched up Fukuoka and Sasebo.
Gotcha. I myself, as a sumo fan, am way more familiar with Fukuoka just because
Yeah.
they have a grand sumo tournament every year there. They have four in Tokyo, one in Nagawa, and then the other one is Fukuoka. So yeah, I am a big sumo fan. That's a story for another show anyway. But yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's still I think up there. Your mileage may vary on terms of some of the other stuff that it's come out since, but yeah, it's still an all time classic, and it still holds up to this day. So yeah, I'm really glad that we finally got to tackle this one because I mean, this is the movie that started my fascination with movies in general. If it wasn't for this,
Nice.
I wouldn't be here talking to you guys. If I didn't like this movie, I wouldn't be here talking to you guys. So yeah, to finally be able to talk about movie number one, the one that started everything, and the one that's kept me around for watching thousands since. Here's to you, big guy.
Nice.
Fuck
This
yeah.
is
And big ups
whoa.
for Hiro Nakajima playing both Rodan and the Mega Nulon in this movie.
Oh, really? Same
Yeah,
actor. Nice.
he's in the front of the costume because I think isn't this the same costume that they used to base the Mothra larva on in the 61 version?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, cause so he would have been in both then. Because yeah, I think this is the same costume that's the 61 Mothra larva is based off of, is the Mega Neuron one.
Very cool. Nice. Derek, anything else you want to add?
It's a classic for a reason in the genre, and everybody should go see it. I hope like because like I got excited because when I watched it because I actually did it just I got lazy and didn't get my DVD. I watched it on HBO Max, and it was so cool to see the Criterion logo come up. I'm like, where's the fucking 4K Criterion? Come on.
Hell yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, for me, like I said, I can't disagree with anything that Don and Derek said. It's an absolute classic. It is essential viewing. If you call yourself a Godzilla or Kaiju fan, it is absolutely an essential watch. You must go back and familiarize yourself with the first appearances of, all of the major Kaiju in, the Toho universe. So, yeah, I'm right there with Don and Derek. Like I said, I'm not as high on the film as they are as far as like, its place in history, but I can't argue with any points that they made. It's an absolute classic, great story, great creature design, good action. I mean, just everything about this is pretty A plus. So
That's a first big role for Kinji Sahara, who's been in fucking 900 of these movies.
oh, this was his first. Nice.
Well, he had like a smaller role in the original Godzilla, but this is like his first like
Yeah,
big leading role.
yeah, he's one of the guests on the. I think he's on the party boat, the one when Godzilla appears in Tokyo Bay.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's one of the guests on that, but I don't remember who he is. But he says that was his first role was that he was in the background for that particular shot, and I've seen Khan interviews where he mentioned like how he was directed to like react to like this thing popping up out of the water, and he's dancing with his date and all that. But yeah, he's on the party boat, the one when Godzilla appears in Tokyo Bay. He's on that particular boat, but this is his first like true official starring role.
Nice. All right. So there you go. Kenji Sahara. All right, folks. Well, I think that is going to do it for Creature Comforts episode 51. On behalf of Don Anelli and Derek B., I am Mr. Venom saying once again for the 51st time, thank you all so much for joining us. We genuinely appreciate you guys taking the time to listen to our content. And hopefully we'll see you again next month. Whose pick? Whose pick? Is it mine?
Derek.
I think it is. Is it?
No, Derek. Because it's me, Derek from Venom.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
So we got Derek's pick next month. So hopefully we'll see you next month in July, folks, or at least you'll hear us. You may not see us, but take care, folks. We'll see you next month. Let's say bye to everybody.
Bye. Later.
Hey, yo.
Later on, Razor.